How the blazes did you get off that island? When you marooned me on that godforsaken spit of land, you forgot one very important thing, mate. I'm Captain Jack Sparrow.
Ahoy, and welcome back to more Films Under Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host Maverick, Dren, Zaria. This week, we are taking a look at the film Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
One of the first movies based on a Disney ride.
Which is really strange to think about.
Which, yeah, when people, heard about this originally, they thought this is gonna be a terrible movie, because, you look at, the other movies that were based on Disney rides at the time, like The Haunted Mansion, The Country Bears, jeez. The only thing anybody remembers about The Country Bears is Christopher Walken's delivery of, "This is not over. Bears!" So, it was also the first Disney movie to be rated PG-13, actually.
Oh.
It was released on July 9th, 2003. And apparently Disney re-released it last month because it was its 20th anniversary this year.
Huh.
This was not planned by us, by the way. I didn't know.
We tend to do that a lot. We get really close to, anniversaries or birthdays.
Yeah. Is it Johnny Depp's birthday today? No, I don't think it is. It cost $140 million and made $654.3 million.
That's a pretty good return.
It was the fourth highest grossing film of 2003. I'm not surprised by what beat it, though. It was beaten out by The Matrix Reloaded, which was third.
Okay.
Finding Nemo, which was second.
Okay.
And The Lord of the Rings Return of the King was first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. So, initial thoughts. Do you want to start, or...
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the first time I watched this. I would have been kind of young, probably maybe 7 or 8 when I saw this for the first time.
Oh, way younger than I was when I saw it.
Yeah, no, I saw this pretty early on, so I can't really tell you, exactly what I was expecting from it. But I will say something that has always surprised me, that definitely holds up on this watch through, is it's just really fun. It is a great movie. All of the actors are amazing. The score is perfect. It has a really nice balance between being pretty funny and being pretty dark at points. My biggest criticism of the movie is it is a bit long and it does drag at a few parts.
Yeah, I was kind of worried about that going in, because I was looking at the run times for,
yeah,
especially for at World's End. It's that movie's almost 3 hours long. I'm like, yeah. Oh my god, that's ridiculous. This is our second movie with pirates that we've done on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because there was the Russian Treasure Island. Did you see that before you saw this?
Oh, I don't know if I did or not.
Surprisingly, I didn't see this until later, which you'd think, because I loved pirates as a kid, so... I think that was, my first Halloween costume. If I remember right, one of them, at least. As a kid, I wanted to be a pirate, and I guess I still am, because I pirate things on the internet. So. And I did pirate this movie, by the way. Fitting.
You weren't giving any money to the mouse to watch this one?
At this point, fuck Disney. It's kind of weird. I remember when these movies were super popular, especially I think when the third movie came out, people were really into these movies, even though I hadn't seen them yet. I even remember having some of the Happy Meal toys for some of them, and like a book of one of them that came with like a toy compass, like the one Jack Sparrow has in the movie. But I guess nowadays people just don't care as much about these movies. Like,
Yeah.
they've kind of moved on after how bad the last two were.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious going back and like seeing if this still holds up or not, because I hadn't seen this in years. Because every once in a while they'd show it on TV, like I would see parts of it on TV. For some reason, it was always the jail scenes that I would see.
Really?
I don't know why, but for some reason, whenever it would be on TV, I would sometimes catch those scenes. But I eventually saw it in full. I probably was in like middle school or something. And I enjoyed the movie. Like, I didn't think it was great, but it was enjoyable. I wouldn't call it like one of my favorite movies of all time. And I'll maybe cite some of my problems with it later, but I can see why it was a success. It's a good popcorn movie.
Yeah.
It has the elements of a crowd-pleasing blockbuster, and I think what sets it apart is it's just this really strange mixture of genres. Because it's kind of adventure, kind of fantasy, kind of horror.
Yeah.
At points, and it balances these things pretty well, I think. And also comedy as well, which I will say that was probably my big takeaway with this movie was Johnny Depp's performance as Captain Jack Sparrow. I feel like that's what the appeal of these movies was not necessarily that they were great movies, but more people just wanted to see Johnny Depp as that character.
He does. He's like perfect for the role. You can't really imagine anyone else doing
At least
it.
before people kind of got sick of that shtick, anyway. But like you watch him in this movie, and you can see why he was, why he's such a like iconic character. And this is apparently this movie almost made you go blind in one eye.
Yeah, no. While trying to watch this movie, everything fell apart. But hey, I got a new computer, so it all balanced out.
Were you wearing like an eye patch while watching it?
I should have.
Okay, so the cast, we of course have Johnny Depp, which
Yep.
Feel free to make as many Amber Heard jokes as you want during this. I don't have any written down, but if you come up with any, feel free. Do we need to say who Johnny Depp is at this point? I mean,
he's very well known for taking a lot of weird roles. Like he played Willy Wonka. He was in that Alice in Wonderland live action movie.
Don't mention that one for fuck's sake. That movie was God.
What was the Lone Ranger? He was in that one.
Tonto, yeah.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Rango.
Yeah, Rango. Which Rango and Lone Ranger, they have the same director as this movie.
Oh.
Gore Verbinski. And he also directed the Birth of Sadness. The unnamed movie. That you fucking hate. We also got Keira Knightley. And she's a returning cast member, actually, because she was Queen Amidala's decoy in The Phantom Menace.
Oh, that's right.
Back when she sort of looked like Natalie Portman. Can't tell them apart in that movie. Orlando Bloom, which most people know him as Legolas.
Yep.
Which, holy shit, this came out the same year as Return of the King. That's interesting.
I know, like, congrats to Orlando Bloom jumping from Lord of the Rings to Pirates immediately.
Yeah. He didn't become quite as beloved in the Pirates movies, though, but oh well. That's right, he looks so different in both, like...
Yeah.
Because blonde isn't his natural hair color, I don't think, at least from what... Anyway. Jeffrey Rush, which we'll certainly be talking about his character.
Yes, I will be talking a lot about his character.
And what's interesting, he's actually going to be in a biopic about Groucho Marx.
Oh, really?
Called Raised Eyebrows. He's going to be playing Groucho Marx.
Huh.
Mackenzie Crook, which some of his other credits, he's in Game of Thrones. Which that doesn't surprise me that Pirates and Game of Thrones have some crossover. And he's also in the UK version of The Office as Gareth, which his character is the equivalent of Dwight.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we have another returning cast member. We got Trevor Goddard, who played Kano in the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh, yay.
And we have Jonathan Bryce in this, which he played the main character Sam Lowry in Brazil, one of my favorite movies. And he's the main Bond villain in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Oh.
He's playing, like, Rupert Murdoch if he was a Bond villain, basically.
Are you saying that he isn't just already a Bond villain?
I don't know enough about Rupert Murdoch. I did write some alternate casting choices down.
Okay.
Actually, Robert De Niro was the first choice to play Barbossa.
That would have been interesting.
But he turned it down since pirate movies were usually big flops at that time, or in other words, the stink of Cutthroat Island was still in the air. Some of the other choices for Will Turner included Tobey Maguire, Jude Law, Ewan McGregor, Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, and Tom Hiddleston.
These are interesting choices.
I think Jude Law would have been good as Will.
Would have been interesting.
Or Ewan McGregor. Well, maybe that's just because I love Ewan McGregor. Some of the other casting choices for Jack Sparrow. Hugh Jackman. He was the original choice. Matthew McConaughey.
Oh. No.
I was gonna say, I could sort of see that a little bit.
He's weird, but in a different way.
What about this next guy? One of our favorites, Christopher Walken.
Oh, that'd be a very different movie.
I feel like he'd be more fitting for Barbossa than...
Yeah, actually. Could you have imagined if it would have come down to Walken versus Matthew McConaughey?
Oh, God.
Just an incomprehensible movie.
All right. You best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one.
You better start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one.
Yeah. Carrie Elways, which that probably would have just been Wesley then. In that case. Or would he be more like Inigo Montoya? There's the crossover I'm waiting for. Princess Bride and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, yeah. Dread Pirate Roberts versus Captain Jack Sparrow.
Exactly. And Jim Carrey.
That would have been weird.
Yeah. Of those choices, who do you think would have worked best?
Um,
I was gonna say either Matthew McConaughey or Carrie Elwes would have been
I'm gonna say Matthew McConaughey.
of those choices. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would love to see Christopher Walken in a Pirates movie, though.
that would be
The
fantastic.
closest we have is Peter Pan Live, where he played Captain Hook, but we don't talk about that, though. Yeah, we mentioned Gore Verbinski directed this. Oh, this is also another Jerry Bruckheimer movie.
Oh,
Done
get
one
him back.
since Armageddon. And he also did Con Air.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting is Johnny Depp got an Oscar nomination for this.
That doesn't surprise me.
For Best Actor. And a Golden Globe nomination in the category Best Actor, Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy.
I see. It's technically a comedy. It's not a musical, so I guess it has to be a comedy.
This could have just been... You could have just done Pirates of Penzance, then, if you wanted to do that. Best Actor... What are, like, the other categories of acting, then? Best Actor in a Motion Picture Drama, Best Actor in a Motion Picture Musical or Comedy. I guess it isn't a drama, so I guess...
So it's a comedy, I guess.
Okay. They don't have action, adventure in there, so yeah, that's all they have. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars.
Wow.
He praised Johnny Depp's performance as original in its every atom. Which is an interesting way to phrase that.
Yeah.
He did, however, feel that the movie was too long, which, yeah, I kind of agree there. What do you want to guess Leonard Maltin gave it?
Oh, he probably loathed it for whatever reason. I'm gonna guess 2.
He gave it 2.5.
Oh, come on, Leonard. Why?
Not as good as Batman Forever.
I know.
It's on the same level as Man of Steel, though. And Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He called it stylishly designed and shot with rollicking performances. This depends more on special effects than the fabled stunt work of classic pirate films, although there's a nice homage to the Crimson Pirate. Fans of the original Disneyland attraction will also enjoy the references that dot the film, but there's no reason for it to be quite so long or plot-heavy.
So because it's long, it gets booted down to a 2.5, apparently.
I've noticed he does this sometimes. Relies more on... he probably doesn't like modern movies then, because this relies way more on stunt work than CGI.
Yeah.
Than most modern movies. Okay, so the main plot, getting into that. The main plot is about pirates.
Basically.
Do people care about the plot of this? Okay, so basically, to sum it up really briefly, the governor's daughter gets taken by pirates. The pirates are on a cursed boat called the Black Pearl, where they turn into a literal skeleton crew under a certain moon. And the only ones that can stop them is the British, Legolas, and a drunk pirate that keeps losing his ship.
That's a pretty accurate description.
Also, Legolas' dad was a pirate, which leads to some mistaken identity. I think I covered the plot there. Okay, let's get into the pros with this one.
What was there any good Netflix description for this movie?
Oh shit.
Okay, here it is. I brought it up. Let's see if it's anything fun. when a young swain recruits rascally, charismatic pirate Captain Jack Sparrow to help rescue a maiden from rival buccaneers. He and his motley crew soon find themselves up against frightening supernatural forces and an ancient curse.
Motley crew.
I would not call them rival buccaneers.
I kind of want to see, like, this movie, and it stars Motley Crue. So, anyway, getting into the pros section, I like the sword fight between Will and Jack. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun fight at the beginning of the film.
Where they're, like, running on that wheel and that, like, steel mill and stuff. There's some good stunt work there. It's nice that there's actual stunt work in this.
Yeah, no, it's pretty active too, because they jump up into the rafters, fight up there a bit. They're fighting around the donkey.
There's kind of some slapstick comedy there too. Like, one thing I thought was funny is they burn a donkey with an iron poker, which you know what that means. They burnt an ass on the ass. At one point, Will says his sword is perfectly balanced, which made me think of Thanos. But that was definitely one thing I liked about this movie, is that I could see where the money went.
Yeah.
In a time when movies have these, like, overinflated budgets that don't show on the screen, that's a little refreshing.
Yeah.
You know, like, everything nowadays is, like, shot on these, like, green screens and stuff. So this movie had more of, like, an organic feel to it. They're, like, on these, like, nice sets and stuff. They're actually, like, doing these stunts and on these ships and stuff.
And that intro fight scene, it does another thing very well.
And it also feels more like a lived-in world, too, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so that fight scene, it also sets up the characters of both Jack and Will pretty well. Like, you know, throughout the fight, essentially what each of them stands for, how each of them acts. It's just a really good introduction to these two characters.
Yeah, Will hates pirates, and Jack is a pirate that gets drunk a lot.
He's either the best or the worst pirate you've ever seen, depending on who you ask.
The sets are pretty good, too.
Yeah. Especially the Black Pearl.
Yes, that ship design. It was kind of reminding me of Hook a little bit, where I'm, like, thinking... They actually had to build these, they either had to build these ships themselves, or they had to, like, get some old ships and use those, which is pretty cool. And Hook also kind of felt like a theme park attraction, too, so that's... And I like the props, too, you know, like the compass and the...
Yeah. The compass that doesn't point north.
Yeah. And I was trying to think of the coins. I like the design of the coins too.
Those Aztec gold medallions look pretty cool.
The costumes pretty good too.
Yeah. They definitely fit the time, but for example, like Jack and Barbossa, like their outfits fit them basically perfectly.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like, you can't imagine the characters wearing anything else other than those costumes.
I remember when that pirate hat that Jack is wearing throughout. This was like a huge, like, Halloween costume, you know?
Yeah.
I might have even had one for all I know. Or one of my friends might have. And I also just like, there's a lot of funny parts in this movie too, mostly because of Jack Sparrow. Like, I like his introduction where he's on his ship and he gets off it right as it sinks.
Yeah, it's just going underwater. He's standing in the crow's nest because that's the only spot that's dry on the boat.
He was sort of reminded. There were parts of this movie where he sort of felt like Buster Keaton or something, like this like silent comedian. Something. And he was actually based on Groucho Marx.
Okay.
and Bugs Bunny. At least the writers originally based him on. Which, that makes me want to see a pirate movie with the Marx Brothers. And Johnny Depp, he took inspiration from Keith Richards, which
is pretty funny considering he comes back and plays his dad.
Yeah. And then Paul McCartney's in the fifth one as, like, Uncle Jack, because they couldn't get Keith to be in it. Really, looking at my notes, most of it is Jack Sparrow quotes.
He has just fantastic quotes.
One of my favorites is when he's, what's the British guy, the British bad guy's name again?
Commodore Norrington?
I think so. When they capture him, he's like examining his stuff. He looks at the compass. He's like, "Oh, it compass is on the point north." You know, he pulls out Jack's sword. Says,
"And I half expected it to be made of wood." You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of me.
I'm gonna use that if I ever have a chance. Or there was a scene with like some guards arguing while Jack is just standing there.
Yeah, he's trying to go and take a new ship for himself.
Which it reminded me of like the beginning of Monty Python and Holy Grail, where there's those knights like arguing and like, while Jack just quietly just sneaks away. And like, I can definitely see why this character became so popular, because he's just so different from what you usually see of pirates in movies.
Yeah.
Because he's dropping one-liners, he's a bit of a drunk.
A bit. He's a lot of a drunk.
Yeah. He never goes to Boston in the fall. But basically his thought process was, when he was playing this character, was that pirates were kind of like rock stars in that just from their names, they already have a reputation for like just living crazy lifestyles, you know, which is why Keith Richards was a huge inspiration. And he's definitely more of an anti-hero.
Yeah. Because he's not really the good guy. He does try and trade away Will to get his boat back.
He's like got this like charming, like roguish nature to him and like confidence. He's kind of like Han Solo now that I think about it.
Yeah.
A little bit. He's got his own ship. He just needs a Chewbacca, I guess, in that case. And it's also a very physical performance, too. Like,
yeah.
Not just in, like, he's doing, like, a lot of stunts, but also he just has these very specific movements.
Yeah, like, whenever he's on land, he's swaying all over the place.
Like, facial expressions, too. Like, was why he was kind of reminding me of, like, a silent comedian, like Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin. And obviously now this character's been, like, driven into the ground. I mean, because they made, like, 4 sequels of it, but at the time, this would have been a really unique performance in, like, a action-adventure type movie, at least. You will always remember this as the day you almost caught Captain Jack Sparrow.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
And then later when they catch him, they like, say, this will be remembered as the day Captain Jack Sparrow almost escaped. Like, yeah, I mentioned it, the stunt work. They had to do these stunts for real, too, which is...
Yeah. Actually, a little bit more about Jack. He also has some pretty enjoyable chemistry with a lot of the other main characters. He gets plenty of screen time with all of them.
The way it kind of is they're, like... Elizabeth, Will, and like the villains, they're kind of the straight men, and he's like the comic in this.
Yeah.
You know? Which is pretty funny. They just find him like really annoying and stuff. He kind of feels like a supporting character in this, which is interesting.
Yeah. Because the story definitely focuses on Will and Elizabeth.
He's not really driving the plot. He's more like the observer character who
Yeah.
just kind of shows up in a scene and steals it and then walks away. Kind of like Creed Bratton now that I think about it, except he has way more screen time than Creed does, obviously. The music's pretty good too. Like, I forget sometimes just how catchy the theme song to this series is. I mean, everybody knows it, don't they?
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
And the guy that did the music was Klaus Badelt.
Yeah, I don't know what his other work is, but
he's done quite a bit. He did Scorpion King too.
oh, not even the Scorpion King. The Scorpion King 2. Wow. I can't even imagine how bad that is. Jeez. And they couldn't even get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson back for that. Man, the movie, it's shot pretty well, too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, in a time when cameras are, like, really, like, when they're doing just all the shaky cam stuff and, like, action movies, it's nice that this movie has a lot of, like, big sweeping camera shots where you can just kind of look at, like, all the landscapes and stuff, so that's nice.
And even when it's dark, things are lit enough that you can still tell what's going on, which is nice.
Yeah, like, I feel like a lot of movies nowadays forget to include more wide shots.
Yeah.
Which maybe part of that is because of green screens, but anyway, 'cause you have this huge, epic, like, adventure movie. Don't you want to show off the scope of it and, like, where you spent the money on it?
Exactly.
I also like the way they build up to the Black Pearl in this.
Oh, yeah. Because, we mentioned earlier that sort of, that scene between Jack and the two guards where it's sort of played for comedy, but that is the introduction to the Black Pearl. We learn sort of the legend about it, that it's the ship whose captain was so evil that hell itself spat him and the ship back out.
Yeah. Because they, like, they treat it like it's this old legend.
Yeah.
And some people think it's real, and then some people don't. So that's an interesting angle to go with it. It's like this ghost ship and stuff. And the name's pretty good, too. The Black Pearl. I mean, that's kind of... What the fuck happened to that pearl to make it so dark? Jeez. Of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, this is definitely the one I remember the most from.
Yeah,
Or one of them at least. I remember parts of the other, of the other ones, but not quite as much as from this movie.
I think what helps it is that it is its own standalone movie. Because, like, for me, a lot of 2 and 3 just kind of blend together.
I think it's a more simple plot, too, than the other ones. The other ones have a few too many subplots, at least from what I remember. Like, it had been a while since I'd watched it, but I remembered little things here and there.
Yeah.
Like, especially the part where Jack gets, like, put in the jail. For some reason, that part always, probably because they showed this, I would see that part on TV a lot. Like the part where he's trying to get the dog to come over to his cell by holding up a phone. And like all the other guys escaped, but he's still trapped in the cell. Another thing I would remember is that Mackenzie Crook's eye keeps falling out.
And then he becomes a very important character by the time we hit the third movie.
I remember him and the other guy getting more to do in the second one. I don't remember much. The third movie, I barely remember, actually, now that I think about it. Like, after starting with the third movie, the memorability kind of starts to go downhill. I've noticed, like, I barely remember the fourth one. I I remember basically nothing about the fifth one. But one thing I thought was funny with that his eye is like there's like one part where a fork gets stuck in it. It's like as his eye moves, like the fork's going up and down. There's like little bits of dark humor in there that I like.
Yeah,
that are kind of interesting.
Another good gag is once they return all of the Aztec gold and try to use Elizabeth's blood. To check and see if it works, Barbossa just takes a gun and shoots a guy and see if he lives.
I forgot about that one. Yeah. It's definitely not a movie you watch for the plot, I will say that. Because the plot's it's a very straightforward plot. You're more there just for the weird setting and the weird characters. Jack says to Will, "How far are you willing to go to save her?" And then Will says, "I'd die for her." And then Jack says, "Oh, good, no worries then." And also, this movie kind of feels sort of old-fashioned, too, which I like. It feels like this old-fashioned, like, swashbuckler movie mixed with, like, a fantasy movie, which is a very interesting take on the pirate genre. Because you got, like, these, like, the weird skeletons and stuff. You got, like well, also has, like, sword fights and...
Yeah. And then, as part of the fantasy, you have the whole legend of the Aztec gold and how the Aztec gods had cursed them all.
Which that one thing I thought that I found funny is Cortez is mentioned.
Yeah.
A few days after I rewatched this, I also rewatched The Road to El Dorado. Which made me think, if they were going to make a sequel to The Road to El Dorado, they should have pirates in it. I feel like that would work. Another character we haven't talked about yet is Barbossa.
The best character in the whole movie, by far.
They do bring him back in the sequels, too. Like, even though he dies in this, they're like, he's a fun character, let's bring him back. Like, Jeffrey Rush, like... You could tell Jeffrey Rush was having fun playing this.
Oh, yeah.
This just evil dude.
So he's very much a sort of John Silver type character. He was the mutineer. Very imposing character.
But then on top of that, he also has this curse where he turns into a skeleton.
Yeah.
Along with his crew, like, on certain nights,
And he has that great monologue to Elizabeth.
For too long I've been parched of thirst and unable to quench it. Too long I've been starving to death and haven't died. I feel nothing. Not the wind on my face, nor the spray of the sea, nor the warmth of a woman's flesh. You best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one.
Yeah, the way he ends that's pretty good, too. Like...
Then he downs the whole bottle of wine so all the bones turn red.
I like him because, I mean, he's fun and he's, like, but he's not overdoing it either.
Yeah. And he's still able to be a very intimidating villain the whole way through.
Because if I remember right, the villain's, like... I don't really remember most of the other villains besides Davy Jones.
Yeah.
Because I think, was it Blackbeard that was in the fourth one?
Yeah, the fourth was Blackbeard, and the fifth was,
Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
With terrible CGI.
I was just gonna say Silva. Drowned Silva.
Silva or Anton Chigurh as a pirate. Oh god, that would be terrifying.
Nightmare blunt rotation.
God. But yeah, Barbossa, he's a fun villain in this. But you also feel kind of bad for him too, because having to deal with a curse like that, he's sort of like Dracula. Now that I think about it, like specifically the one from Bram Stoker's Dracula, Gary Oldman. It kind of, that monologue he gave sort of reminded me of some stuff that Dracula says in that movie, where he's like just because if that's true, then that means he's been alive a long time.
Well, he's been alive about as
Kind
long
of.
as Jack.
Well,
but
undead, I guess. Sorry.
yeah.
Like that would make him what, like half zombie or something? I don't know how to. But you best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one. It's like,
And he's also got that scene with Elizabeth earlier when she comes up and she goes, Captain Barbossa, I'm here to negotiate the cessation of hostilities against Port Royal. There are a lot of long words in there, miss. We're not but humble pirates. And then the next time she asks him something, he turns it around on her and, she's like, I want you to leave and never come back. I'm disinclined to acquiesce to your request. Means no.
yeah, it's pretty good. There's some good dialogue exchanges between the characters in this. You stole my boat. I borrowed it without permission. There's like this one guy who got his tongue cut out.
Oh yeah, Cotton.
But apparently he trained his parrot to talk for him. But I'm like, wait, how did he train the parrot if his tongue's cut? There's this one weird part where like they're telling a story about Captain Jack Sparrow like using
sea turtles to escape the island he was stranded on.
Yeah, I missed part of that, but I was like, wait, what the fuck is this? Apparently, and they like asked him what he used for rope, and then Jack himself says he used human hair from his back.
From his back.
Which I was like, oh my god, that must be a fuck ton of hair then, jeez.
I do love that because it builds up more the legend of Captain Jack Sparrow because it's such an unbelievably like stupid tale that no one would believe. But then you see Jack do all these unbelievably stupid things, and so you have to wonder if he's telling the truth or not.
And this is also just such a strange concoction when you think about it too. It's just this weird blend of genres, fantasy, horror, swashbuckler, comedy, like at the time it would have been a weirdly original movie for what it is.
Yeah.
And the scary parts aren't like it doesn't go too far with the scary bits either. Like it doesn't like overdo that aspect.
Yeah, most of the scares are mostly just because the bad guys are a group of skeletons, basically.
Yeah.
There are some funny gags that they do with that, though. For instance, when the governor cuts off the one pirate's arm and shoves it in the drawer.
I was gonna write some of those down, but I was like thinking, how am I going to even describe some of this stuff? Because
so the governor takes off the arm of one of the pirates and it's trying to attack him because it's undead, and he picks it up, throws it in like this drawer, but then the curse gets lifted, and so it just becomes a dead, rotting hand lying in the drawer.
They don't show it, but when he opens the drawer, he's like, "Oh God!" It's pretty good. That was some good acting from Jonathan Pryce there.
And the fight at the end of the movie between Barbossa and Jack is really, really fun too, because Jack ends up stealing a piece of the treasure so that he also becomes a skeleton, just to kind of put himself on more equal ground.
It'll be nice when I rewatch this movie. I won't have to take notes while doing it, because you miss every other thing when you do that.
Yeah.
There's one part where Barbossa, so he's gonna throw Elizabeth off the ship, and Will's getting mad, saying something like, "Oh, you said you were gonna set her free," and he says, I'll I'll let her go free. It was you who failed to specify when or where. The part where Jack is on that island with Elizabeth, and he's like...
At first, they're sort of partying with all the rum that first night they're there, and then Jack wakes up, and she's burning down, like, the whole island to try and set up a signal.
And he keeps asking, why is the rum gone? This movie does have another villain, because you also have Norrington.
Yep. Sort of a British naval officer.
He's not as good as Barbossa, but he's a pretty good foil for Jack.
Yeah.
Because it's like... just the contempt that he has for pirates, and Jack Sparrow in particular. There's some funny moments that come from that, I think. At one point, Jack says,
She's safe, just like I promised. She's all set to marry Norrington, just like she promised. And you get to die for her, just like you promised. So we're all men of our word, really. Except for Elizabeth, who is, in fact, a woman.
If I can mention...
Of all the lines in this movie, that was the one that felt the most like a Groucho Marx line, actually, now that I think about it.
I'll bring up one of my cons, actually.
Oh, okay. Movie. I was almost to my cons, but...
the CGI hasn't aged the best in this one.
Yeah, the CGI skeletons look kind of... I think even back when I first saw it, I remember thinking they looked a little silly, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
For being from 20 years ago. It just doesn't look very scary now.
Yeah.
What are you looking at? Back to work!
Although, granted, I don't really know how else they would have pulled it off. And it didn't age as badly as I was expecting it.
Yeah, no, there are definitely effects that have aged worse. But everything in, like, Thor, Love and Thunder, like the weird hologram
God, yeah,
guy.
it looks better than that. Jesus Christ. But I was thinking more of stuff from, like, that time period, like the early 2000s. You know, it looks better than the Scorpion King, for example. Especially in Mummy Returns. Oh, my.
Oh.
It looks better than some of the stuff in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Partly because they use it a little more sparingly in this. I find it funny that even the Barbossa's monkey turned into a skeleton.
Yeah, because the monkey at the very end steals some of the treasure, so it becomes undead.
That was funny. And even Jack turns into a skeleton briefly, like, towards the end.
Yeah.
I did like the stuff with the skeletons, though. There was, like, some dark humor that came with that. It was sort of reminded me of Army of Darkness, now I think about it. I think some of my main cons with the movie, though, it's too long.
It is probably... Because you hit, like, a certain point, and you're like, wow, we must be close to the end, and then there's another hour left.
Yeah, I was, like, watching it and just going, like, there's half an hour left. And there's also some of the stuff at the beginning was a little bit slow, I felt. Like, it takes a while for Jack to show up, for example. I feel like maybe there was a little bit too much, like... Maybe not too much plot... Because it's a very simple plot.
Yeah.
I feel like there were too many scenes that just kind of felt like padding. Maybe a few too many characters as well. Like, and looking at the runtimes for the next two movies, I'm a little scared. Because they only get longer from here.
Yeah.
Then again, Dead Men Tell No Tales, that's like the shortest of the series, and that one felt like the longest one. Because Jesus Christ. One thing this movie was missing is having Natalie Portman play Elizabeth's decoy.
That would have been fantastic.
Also, how can you be a pirate if your compass doesn't point north? Come on. I mean, really. I think, if I remember right, don't they have an explanation for that in, like, the sequel?
Yeah. They mentioned that it points to where you want to go, not to north. Which would be very helpful for a pirate.
True, yes. The CGI skeletons, we talked about that.
Yeah.
I actually remember one time going to the TV section of a store and they were showing the scene with the skeletons on it. It's just like, I can't remember. I think this was after I'd seen the movie, but anyway. There's a part of me that thinks that kind of wishes this movie was a little bit weirder.
Yeah, it doesn't quite lean as much into the weirdness as like 2 and 3 do, for example.
Granted, the fourth one also was trying to do the weird stuff, and it did not work from what I remember. Because from what I remembered, that was kind of the appeal of these movies, was they were a little bit idiosyncratic. With, like, how do I explain? The setting, I guess, and like the style, I don't know. It's kind of like taking like some of the myths people associate with like the sea and like bringing that in, because there's like these curses and stuff. There's a kraken in one of the movies. There's like mermaids in the fourth one.
Yeah.
I barely even remember the fifth one, and of all the movies I probably won't rewatch that one.
Yeah.
I think that was something we decided when we were going to do these, is we're only doing the first 3.
Yeah, I don't really feel like sitting through 4 or 5 again.
I don't remember much of the fourth one. Like, is it that bad? Or...
From what I remember, it wasn't horrible. It was just not nearly as good as the first 3. From what I remember of 5, it really was that bad.
I do have a story about the fourth one, which I won't talk about right now, but I'll get to that maybe when we're doing the third one.
Okay.
Because I have an interesting experience with that movie that kind of traumatized me. I think another one of my problems with this was probably my other big problem. Maybe I don't know, but the movie focuses too much on Elizabeth and Will, who they're not terrible, but they're not as
they're not the most interesting characters in the movie. They feel very almost cookie cutter.
They kind of feel shoehorned in. It's sort of like in the MGM Marx Brothers movies where they felt like they needed like a love story in there as well. And then the Marx Brothers just kind of feel like supporting characters, sort of like in like At the Circus or The Big Store, probably being the worst examples of that. And that's sort of what Jack feels like. He sort of feels like just this like supporting comic character that they added in. And this movie, they really wanted Orlando Bloom to be like the next Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
And he's not quite up to the task. Like, he's okay, but like, I mean, I think that might be like Orlando Bloom's like star only shone brightly for like a brief time, because after this they kind of just figured, he's not quite leading man material.
Yeah, no, the sequels definitely choose to focus on Jack instead.
And yet they still kept Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom in it. I guess after the third one they just jumped ship, literally. Yeah. Like the fourth one, they don't even have them. They have I don't even know. I guess by that point they're like, oh, let's give Jack Sparrow a love interest, so they have Penelope Cruz in that one. And then I don't even remember. This is the fifth one. Does anybody remember the fifth one, actually?
I honestly, all I remember about the fifth one is that Barbosa dies again.
What I remember about the fifth one, Javier Bardem's the bad guy, with bad CGI. Paul McCartney has a cameo as Uncle Jack. And God, I just remembered that one being so boring and long. And also not very funny either.
No.
Like it felt like they weren't really trying to be funny at that point. So. Like the fourth one, at least from what I remember, it at least had some funny bits. Granted, it's been like 12 years since I saw it, so like I also felt like the color grading was a little too desaturated in this movie.
It does kind of have that. I think we talked about this a bit during the Man of Steel episode, but movie makers went through a phase where they just desaturated the hell out of everything they
They're
made.
still doing that. They're still doing that. Like Rogue One looks like that too. Yeah. It's like really gray, and I guess they're trying to show it as like, oh, maybe it's like fog or something, like when you're at sea, but I don't know. I feel like you're trying to make a big, like, bombastic adventure movie. Wouldn't you want it to look a little bit more colorful than this?
Yeah.
Like, I can see why you would do that during, like, some of the darker scenes, like when they're on the Black Pearl. But anyway, do you have anything else to add?
Nothing. I think I've mostly just I've said what I wanted to. You know, the characters in this are great. They're part of the reason why the movie's so memorable. The writing's great, music's great.
I guess we're getting into our overall thoughts now.
Yeah, music's great. Very memorable main theme.
Yes, yeah.
Like I'll catch myself like actually just humming that every now and again.
Not quite as catchy as the Mortal Kombat theme.
Well, nothing is as catchy as the Mortal Kombat theme.
Yeah, well, I would say my overall thoughts. It's not a great movie, but it is enjoyable. Johnny Depp, of course, is fun as Jack Sparrow. I mean, he really is just like he was like basically the Fonz of this movie, I guess. He was like the character that they weren't expecting to be like the breakout star, but he kind of ended up just overtaking everything before the series jumped the shark. Like, the other actors are fine. Jeffrey Rush is pretty enjoyable as Barbossa, but like it really is just Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
Overshadows everything. It's sort of like when they did the first Pink Panther movie. Originally, David Niven was the main character.
Oh.
But then Peter Sellers was so funny and iconic as Inspector Clouseau that he ended up becoming the main star of the series.
Yeah.
Like, people know the name Inspector Clouseau, but Sir Charles Lytton, not so much. The action scenes in this movie are pretty good. Especially the fight in that steel mill.
Yep, the fight in the steel mill and the fight in the cave at the end of the movie are both pretty memorable.
I would say the special effects are fair for the time.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, because I was trying to compare it to like other uses of CGI from that time, and like lots of movies from that time, the CGI just doesn't hold up. Like, and this is better than some of them. The CGI in Lord of the Rings looks better than this, though. I will say that.
Yeah.
Like Gollum, you know, is still a pretty impressive special effect.
Yeah, especially for the time.
The production design is pretty good.
Yep. Costumes are fantastic.
Very good costumes, you know, setting it. I can see why this movie did as well as it did.
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried about the rest, though.
See, I I'm not as worried about 2 and 3.
I know that the quality drops from here. Part of why I was worried, though, is just because I don't remember a whole lot about the next 2, which kind of tells me that they're a little bit forgettable. At least compared to this movie, anyway. Because I remember Davy Jones, I remember the Kraken, I remember the Alamo, most importantly. And the part where Jack Sparrow's, like, getting chased, I remember that, mostly because of the memes nowadays. Was even the main plot. I don't remember the main plots, actually, of those 2 movies.
It's a good thing we're watching those ones next, then.
Because I remember the 4th one has the Fountain of Youth in it.
Yeah.
Dead Man's Chest, so I assume it has something to do with that chest.
Yes.
One thing I found interesting, though, is like how closely the 2nd and 3rd ones were released together.
Weren't they just like a year apart?
Because the first one was 2003, Dead Man's Chest was 2006, and then Ed World's End was 2007.
Okay. They must have filmed them at the same time then.
Yep. So sort of like Lord of the Rings. They're
Yeah.
kind of filming them all together, you know. That doesn't happen much, does it? I do remember that Stone Skarsgård is in the 2nd one. As Bootstrap Bill, I think.
Yeah, Bootstrap, who was mentioned in this one.
He's mentioned in this in Curse of the Black Pearl, but he's not in it.
Yeah.
They do. That is another thing I will say about this movie. They did come up with really good names for the characters.
Like Captain Jack Sparrow was like...
That's a perfect pirate name right there, yeah. Okay, I think that's all the...
Alright, I do have just 2 other things to add on here.
Okay, like
at the end
trivia
really quick.
things.
Yeah,
Is
just
it
2 quick
about...
trivia
Wait.
things.
Let me guess. Is one of them about the video game tie-in?
Not the tie-in, but both of them are about video games. So...
wait. I think I know what you're going to mention. Okay. I know what you're going to mention.
There is a possible influence of the Monkey Island video game series on this first movie especially. Ted Elliott, one of the screenwriters for this film, was allegedly writing a George Lucas-produced animated film adaptation of The Curse of Monkey Island, which was canceled before its official announcement 3 years prior to the release of The Curse of the Black Pearl. So there could be some sort of influence coming in from there. There's also just a lot of similarities between the 2 series, such as being set primarily within the Caribbean. Obviously a focus on pirates, with the main character, Guybrush Threepwood, facing off against legions of undead pirates, essentially.
I knew you were going to mention Monkey Island, because that was like mentioned when I was scrolling through the Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I don't know if I've had a chance to mention this series before.
Another thing, okay, before we get to that, the 4th one also has a Monkey Island connection.
Oh yeah?
Actually, because it was based on a book called On Stranger Tides, which was an inspiration for Monkey Island.
Oh, okay.
So there's quite a bit of overlap.
Yeah.
Not just because they have pirates in them. Okay, what's the other thing? I'm a little bit afraid about this.
So, I don't know if I've mentioned this series yet on the podcast, just because we haven't done a whole lot that would be related to it. There is this video game series called Kingdom Hearts, which, if you don't know, it's basically anime character plus Donald and Goofy travel to all sorts of different Disney worlds. In the second game, they visit the pirates' world during The Curse of the Black Pearl, and so there's a lot of scenes from that are recreated in that game. None of the original actors reappear in this one, but I believe in the third one, when they go back to Pirates of the Caribbean for the third movie, I think they get some of the original the original actors to come back and voice their characters.
So is Johnny Depp in it?
I think he's in Kingdom Hearts 3.
What about Jeffrey Rush? Is he in it?
I'm not sure. I haven't played 3 yet.
I don't know a whole lot about Kingdom Hearts. Like, I sort of knew the basic idea of it, though, is that it's kind of like a crossover with all these Disney characters. You know?
Yeah.
It's the Infinity War of Disney video games.
Let's see, I'm trying to pull up the behind the voice actors page, because that should make it easy. Oh, okay, so Jack is not voiced by... Okay. Never mind, it looks like nobody is voiced by their original voice actors. I just completely lied about that. Ignore that bit of trivia about the third game.
Who did they get to voice Jack Sparrow? Groucho Marx?
Jared Butler. He's...
Do you say Jared Butler or Gerard Butler?
Jared. He's also voiced the Mad Hatter, Rango, and Tonto in various video games. So he does a lot of dubbing of...
Basically, they're like, you're Johnny Depp now.
Yeah. Oh, they got Kevin McNally to do Gibbs.
I thought you were going to say Kevin McAllister for a second. You know, I will say this about the sequels. They do have good titles.
Yeah.
Dead Man's Chest, At World's End, On Stranger Tides, Dead Men Tell No Tales. I'm surprised it took them that long to use that one. Wait, so 2 of the movies in this series have dead
Yeah.
in the title.
Alright, well, that's all that I have.
And by the time you get to the 5th one, that's the one where it really should have been dead. Okay, so I guess until next time we're doing just Dead Man's Chest. Are we doing them one at a time?
Yeah, let's do them one at a time. They're very long movies.
They are, yes.
Roll the Andy Griffith.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.